guys, welcome back to my channel. So let's discuss today's about the new topic that is Linux architecture. It is very important topic, so please be careful and please try to concentrate. So here mainly we will discuss about the hardware, kernel, cell and applications in the detailed. Okay. So first is the hardware. It is the physical components. Okay. So what is hardware? Hardware is the foundation of any computer system, and everything in Linux eventually interacts with hardware. Okay, so it is the foundation of any computer system, and in Linux eventually interact with the hardware. Everything. Okay, so what it includes? First is the CPU. It executes the instructions. Okay. Second is RAM. It's used to it stores data temporarily. Third is the hard disk or SSD. It store data permanently. Okay. And this is network card. It's a internet communication. Keyboard and mouse. It is for the input devices. Audio devices is the speakers, microphone. Okay. So these are the hardware. So why it's important? Why this hardware is important? So without hardware, nothing can run. Okay. Without CPU, RAM, hard disk, keyboard, mouse, or audio device, of course, we cannot run anything. So kernel communicates directly with hardware to perform actions. Okay. So easy example we can just relate like when you click a mouse. Okay. So Linux receives that input from the hardware and send it to the kernel and then to the application you are using. Okay, so in this way, uh, once you click anything by using the mouse, once you suppose you want to click on the any applications or any like we can take an example of the Microsoft Teams. Suppose you want to open that Teams and connect to the other people. So first you will click through mouse and then the Linux, what will do Linux will receive that input like yes you want to open that Microsoft Teams applications. So it will receive that input from the hardware, from the mouse, and then send it to the kernel. Okay, and then kernel to the applications you are using. So in that way your application will open. So this is the back in the backend that is happening. Then after you will receive whatever the input you have given and then you will get the output. So this is the easy example. In that way you can understand. Second is the kernel. Kernel is brain of Linux. Okay. So the kernel is the most important part of Linux and it sits between hardware and everything else. So kernel basically it's directly communicate okay with the hardware. So what the kernel does? First one is the memory management. Like it controls how RAM is used, which program gets how much memory. So this is done by the kernel. Okay. Second one is the device management. Means uses device drivers to control hardware like keyboard, sound card, printer. To control this hardware, we use the device management and this is basically done by the kernel. Okay. Process management. like decides which processes run first and manages multitasking. So for this process management, this is also uh, done by the kernel. File system management, like handles the files, directories, permissions. These all done by the by the kernel by using the file system management. Fourth is the networking, like manages the network traffic, IP communication, firewall rules. Okay, so in the simple words, you can just understand like Linux. This kernel is the most important part of Linux, and it sits between hardware and everything else. And the kernel वर्क इज टू मेमोरी मैनेजमेंट, मेमोरी को मैनेज करना, डिवाइस मैनेजमेंट, प्रोसेस मैनेज करना, फाइल सिस्टम को मैनेज करना एंड नेटवर्किंग। ओके, नेटवर्किंग को भी मैनेज करती है। सो व्हाई इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट? बिकॉज without the kernel, Linux cannot run any program. Of course, you can understand by understanding this all the kernel what the work kernel is doing. So in that way, you can understand. Suppose if kernel will not manage the memory, so it will be very difficult to how much memory should be allocate for the program according to the program. If the program is not large, so we will store the less memory, right? So these all managed by the kernel. So of course, so that's why we call the kernel is the brain of Linux. And it ensures security, performance, and resource control. Okay. Easy example, like when you open a browser, the kernel gives CPU time, allocates memory, and reads data from the disk. This is what kernel done. Kernel do from the backends. Okay. When you open a browser, so kernel first gives the CPU time, how much CPU time will be taken, allocates memory, okay, and the read data from the disk. So this is the work of the kernel. Third one is the shell. So shell is the command interpreter. Basically, shell is like a translator between the user and the kernel. Okay. It has to translate the command, whatever the command used by the user. So it has to translate and then it sends to the kernel and then kernel will perform the action accordingly. So what the shell does, reads the command you type, okay, then convert it into the instruction. The kernel understands whatever the command we have typed, it convert into the instruction so that the kernel can understand that command. Okay, and then shows the output to you. Okay, so basically in Linux, mainly whatever the understand the command. So and the command which is typed by the user, and then it will convert this it into the instructions, and then kernel will understand, and then after we will able to see the output. So types of shell is there, like a base shell. This is the most common shell which is used, a G shell, corn shell, and the fish shell. So why it's important? Here you can understand, like without the shell, you cannot communicate with the system. Okay, shell helps automate tasks using scripts. Suppose if you will use the script, so one time only you have to use that script, and once you run that script, the shell will help you to automate the task. You don't no need to do the or perform the any task again by again and again. Directly you have to you can write the script also, and then run the script, and it has to automate the task. Okay. So easy example, like when you type bag, okay, this is the cell. First you have to type the cell, like which cell you are using. And then you have to use the command, like what the command, like what input you want. Like suppose you want to create any directory, like you want to create directory, and the name of the directory you have given like test. So for this, you have to write the command mkdir and the name of the directory, that is test. So you want from the cell, like please create one directory with the name test. So what in this case, the cell read it and tells the kernel, and then kernel creates the folder on disk. So this is the work. In this way, you can understand in the easy way. This is the work like cell do. It communicate with the kernel, and then kernel will create the folder on disk. So this is the work of the cell. You can simply just keep it in mind, like it is like a translator between the user and the kernel. Okay. Fourth is the application, like a user programs. Applications are the software tools users work with. Okay. This is the software tools which is used by the users. For example, Chrome, Firefox, VS Code is the application, Docker, File Manager, VLC, MySQL, or PostgreSQL. These all are the applications, or we can say the software tools which is used by the users. Or and on these applications, user basically work. Okay. So what applications do? Use Linux services like memory, CPU, file. Yeah, this is the Linux services, and this is used by the application. Provide features for users. Okay, so that users can easily, work on that particular application because it provides some features that is easy for the users to communicate and to work on that application. Run in user space, not directly inside the kernel. Yeah, this is done by the applications. Like in the applications only you can run whatever the program you want to run, and it did not directly inside the kernel. Why it's important? They let you actually use the computer. Okay, and easy example, when you watch a YouTube video. So for this, suppose you have opened the application like Chrome. This is also like a application. You have opened Chrome. Cell is offline in this case. Okay. Kernel, like it will manage the audio, video, network. Okay. And the hardware, it plays the video and sound. Like a speaker you are using. So this will be done by the hardware itself. So in this way you can understand with the easy example, now it will be very easy to understand, to relate all the things. Okay, how the applications are working, how we are using the kernel, how we are using the cell, okay, how hardware are using. So in this way you can understand. Okay, here you can see the simple architecture diagram, like this is the diagram: application, cell, kernel, and hardware. Okay. So first, hardware is directly communicate with the kernel. Kernel communicate with the cell. Okay. Means cell is basically communicate between the kernel and the application. Like whatever the commands you have written, cell will just give information to the kernel, and then kernel will convert this to the output. Okay. And then applications. So ED diagram you can see here. This is the application. Means here basically we are working on like Chrome, VS Code. We don't know whatever the happening in the backend. This is the used by the this is the application which is used by the users, and this is only which users can see. Like suppose you are using the Chrome, okay, browser, or VS Code or Docker or VLC or MySQL. This is used by the user, but in the backend, the cell, you have used the command bash cell, gcell, text commands from the user, okay, and then kernel. Kernel is the brain of Linux. Like it will basically its work is to manage the memory, processes, files, and devices. Okay, so kernel communicate with the hardware, and the cell also provide the command to the kernel, and then after it works. And hardware, you can see like the CPU, RAM, how much memory, disk, in which place, or you have to store the data, keyboard you are using for giving the input, and the network card. So this is the hardware. So in this way, the Linux architecture basically it works. You can understand in this way. Quick summary, like a super simple summary, you can understand. Like hardware is the physical machine. Okay, kernel is controls everything, and cell communicates with kernel. It's the easy way you can understand. Applications, programs you use, like basically the users are using the application, and cells communicates with kernel, and kernel controls everything. So that's why kernel called as the brain of the Linux. Okay, because it's controlling everything. The way our body, like brain, is controlling everything, our movement. Okay, so in this way, the it's control the everything, and hardware is the physical machine. So that's all for today. If you like this video, so please like, share, and subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.